So the big question is this: how do pastors like us who remain focused on the mission of Jesus and serving our communities without being distracted by everything in the world around us, how do we increase our effectiveness while living a lifestyle that doesn't compromise our health, our families, or our personal relationships with Jesus? That's the question this podcast is going to answer. I'm Dr. Brandon Party Cooper, and welcome to the Ministry Hackers Podcast. Hey, welcome everybody. Hope you are doing well, having a great day today. I'm doing awesome. It's the middle of the week and just loving the week. It's gone well for me here. Been doing a lot of research and reading and studying. Met with a few clients over the last couple of days, which is always invigorating. And for those of you who are my clients and get to spend time with you, thank you just for the opportunity to hang out, because it's so much fun and it's great to hear what God's doing in your churches and in your ministries. And so it's just been an overall good week on this end of things. So I hope it's going well for you. In this episode, I wanted to take a minute and pull a chapter out of my book, Millennial Leadership. A lot of things that I've been reading and looking at in the last few days has been talking about the shift in leadership. And for those of you who have, been following or who have known me a while, my book came out last November. So before COVID, before pandemic, before everything. And the book really kind of talks about and deals with the shift in leadership that a year ago, or really 2 years ago when I wrote it, that I was starting to see the trend, seeing where it was going. And I wrote the book saying these, elements or these 4 roles of leadership are going to come up to the forefront. And then over the last 6 or 8 months, since the beginning of the year and then COVID and then pandemic and everything else, I've been seeing more and more articles and podcasts and different things talking about how these roles are that I wrote in the book. These roles are in fact becoming the shift in leadership that we're seeing. And so one of those roles I want to talk about. But before we do, I want to tell you a little story. So when I lived in Texas about 12 years ago now. I moved to Texas in 2008, and I had the opportunity to be a director of a leadership development program called the Oak School of Leadership, associated with a local college, Southwestern Assembly of God University. Many of our listeners and watchers, you were students with me in that 6 years that I was there. And has been one of the most exhilarating and rewarding ministry opportunities that I've had. And many of the students that I had the opportunity to serve during that time have gone on to do just great things. And it's been an amazing walk for me just to be a part of that. One of the roles that I filled while I was there was being a dorm pastor. So me and my wife, we lived in the dorms with 100 or so college students, and we had a little sliding door down in the lobby where students would come and knock on our door, and we'd open it up, and they'd come in and watch football games and eat cake and whatever. It was lots of fun for the season. We had no kids, and so that made it very possible for us to do that. But one of the things that I had to do as a dorm pastor was choose RAs, or resident assistants, every year. And it was always a very challenging process, because our program developed high-level student leaders. So all of our students were college kids, and they were all great leaders on their own. That's why they were in our program. And so trying to choose the best ones to be RAs was, a very difficult task for me to do. And there was one particular year where we had lots of really good applications for the men's dorm. Now, there were 2 RAs, and there were probably 15 or so applicants. I was able to narrow it down to about 3, just based on qualifications and other things that they had done. It was really relatively easy to narrow it down to the 3, just because some of them were disqualified because of different things that they either classes they hadn't taken or whatever the case was. And so I was able to narrow it down to 3. Now, 2 of the 3 were very, very charismatic, very high energy. They had a lot of just natural leadership ability, and they, in some aspects, were the natural choice. they, if anybody else was to look at the three candidates just at face value, they would have zeroed in on the two that probably drew their attention most because they were the most, outgoing and charismatic. But in the end, I actually chose the third option. And the reason was because the third option, although all three were great leaders, the third option, what I realized when I was really sitting down and evaluating and looking at the last year or two, what I realized was that this third candidate, he was already doing everything that the leadership position of an RA would be asked to do. Now, not some of the technical tasks, but some of the natural leadership things. He was the one that a lot of the guys were already going to and asking for help. He was the one that was already putting in the time and the energy to set the others up for success, whether they were new freshmen coming in. He was going to their dorms and just checking on them and making sure that they were adjusting well, or whether it was some of the older students who were transitioning to the second phase of the program where they would go onto campus and take their classes on campus and mix in with the rest of the population on campus. Whatever the case was, he was already doing those things. And so in the end, I ended up giving him the RA position, not because he was necessarily better than the other two. They were all pretty equal across the board with different strengths. But in the end, one of them was already doing the job of leading the guys in the dorm. And so he was the one that I ended up choosing. And when I was writing my book, this story came to mind because I realized that in the shift of leadership, one of the things that we're seeing in the trends and what we're now seeing in reality play out is that the leaders who step into positions of being a facilitator or facilitating the success of other people are the leaders who are rising to the top. Primarily because with the millennial generation and younger people, or really just anybody who is exhausted serving a leader who is dictatorial or demanding, they are drawing to leaders who prioritize the future success of their followers. That's what this individual is doing. That's why I gave him the position of being an RA. And that's what we're seeing a lot of high-level leaders make the shift towards. So instead of leveraging their followers or employees or whatever, instead of leveraging them for the success of the leader is choosing to leverage his influence and his resources or her resources to make those around them successful. And so that's one of the roles in the book that I talk about, is being a facilitator. It's a role for the future that we're seeing already come into play, and that leaders who are making the adjustment to being a facilitator of others' success, they're going to have longer term careers. They're going to have greater influence. They're going to make a greater impact on the world. And so I want to give you just a real quick look at how to be a great facilitator. And the first is to be relational. And we hear it all the time that leadership is based on relationship. And sometimes when we hear that, we can think, oh, that just means that I need to know the people that I'm serving or that are following me. I need to, kind of know who they are and have some small talk with them and whatever else. But what that really means, what being relational really means, is taking the time as a leader and getting to know the people that serve you. Now, for some of us in some of our ministry positions, there are hundreds of people under us. For those of you who are lead pastors and you serve churches of 1,000 plus, the reality is that you're not going to know everybody in your church. Probably not know everybody by name, let alone really know them or be relational with them. But you should be relational with the people closest to you. And so what I encourage pastors and ministry leaders to do is really spend the time to get to know those in your immediate influence or your immediate circle, whether it's your staff members, maybe it's your board, maybe there are some core leaders in your congregation that you're connected with, but really spend time to be relational with them. And when I say be relational, I mean really talk to them, get to know them, get to know their fears and their desires, their dreams. What do they hope to get out of their life and their involvement at the church or their relationship with you? What makes them tick? Where are they at with their family as a spouse or a parent? That's what being relational is. Being relational is stepping out of our role as a leader and saying, hey, it's not all about me. It's about the people that are around me, and taking time to get to know them and understand them as individual people. The second is to be open. I don't know how you came into leadership or how you developed or grew, but I grew into leadership or into ministry with this idea that as the leader, we had to separate ourselves a little bit from those we led, because if the thought was, if we were completely open and honest, that it would diminish our ability to lead people. And I believe that 30 or 40 years ago, that really was the case, when leadership was looked at as, this ideal that everybody wanted to aspire towards. And so we had to, as leaders, we had to keep that ideal up. And so that meant that any of our flaws or any of our issues or any of our struggles, we had to hide those, because it would break this illusion that we were the ideal that people could aspire to. In recent years, and I think a lot of it's because we've seen over the last 20 years or 30 years, we've seen a lot of leadership fails. A lot of leaders have morally and ethically have just collapsed, and it's really killed the belief in leadership and the trust of leadership across the board. So what I say when I say be open, I mean to really embrace this idea that we are honest with ourselves. That doesn't mean that we put out all of our laundry, our dirty laundry, out for everyone to see. It doesn't mean that we just kind of vomit our problems on anybody and everybody that comes our way, because there is a level of, we are the leaders and we have to serve others. But there is also a level of sharing our struggles, sharing our difficulties, sharing the things that we're not good at, instead of just talking about the things that we are. Talking about the times when we failed, not just the times that we were heroes. I think that if we can be open with those things and we can be honest, it doesn't diminish our influence. And a lot of times it doesn't diminish the position that we hold. A lot of times what it'll do is it will deepen people's trust in us. Because if they see what we're doing as leaders and as pastors and ministry leaders, if they're seeing that, and they're seeing us be successful or seeing us do well or seeing us love others, they're seeing us do that, but they know that we are doing that despite the challenges and struggles and things that we're going through. It's encouraging, it's empowering. And at the same time, I also think that it shows the grace of God very vividly in the lives of the people that are watching, because they're able to see that, hey, they're not perfect, but God is still using them in great and mighty ways. And so the second is to be open, be open. The third is to be serving. Now, I think this goes without saying, as pastors and ministry leaders, servant leadership should not be something that is foreign or unfamiliar to us. We should be aware of it. We should be practicing it on a pretty regular basis. But I think there is a level of, we need to be reminded of that. We need to be reminded that we are to serve. I know that even some congregations have a tendency to lift the pastor up in this very honored seat, almost to the point where, I've seen where if the pastor is not treated a certain way or respected in a certain way, that he gets, I've seen it where that person gets very upset and frustrated and flustered, because they're being treated like a normal person. Well, we are normal people. We're pastors and ministry leaders, sure, but we're broken just like everyone else is. We have struggles like everyone else is, and I think that if we remember to serve, be the first servant, to show and model servanthood, then we draw people to us. They understand us, they understand who we are. And this particularly plays into the role of being a facilitator, because if we are serving the success of other people, then it endears them to us. And quite honestly, it helps them realize that we're not in it for ourselves, that we really are trying to serve them and help them. And we're not just trying to build a church, we're trying to help them build a life that is honoring of God and honoring of themselves and worthy to be lived. And so serving those around us and facilitating the success of others really draws people to us and helps them to buy into the idea that we love them truly on a very genuine level, and that we're interested in their success and their growth. And so that's the third one. The fourth one is be collaborative. Now, some of us are better than others. I know for me, being collaborative has been a challenge, primarily because I'm a perfectionist to a certain degree. And at the same time, I like things to be done well. And especially early on in leadership, I really struggled with empowering other people and working with other people. Not because I didn't value them, but because it had to be perfect. And in order for it to be perfect, I had to do it right. And I had to do it on my own. And if it didn't come out perfect, then I owned the responsibility because I did it on my own. But when I handed things off to other people, then, or if I had to work with other people, well, then if it didn't work out right, well, then it was hard for me to fully navigate that mentally. And I think that's, some of us listening and watching can identify with that. But at the same time, being collaborative, when we share ideas, when we work together, again, if you are the lead in your church or even in your department, sometimes there's this need for us that we need to be the ones with the best ideas, or we need to be the ones with all of the ideas that we implement, or whatever the case is. But all that really does is it puts this heavy burden on us that we have to be top notch all the time. And I don't know about you, but I don't always have the best ideas. I don't have the most efficient way to do things. I don't have the most creative way to do things. And so by being collaborative, we're able to pool everybody's thoughts and everybody's ideas and everything that they bring to the table. We're able to pool all of that together and really come out with the best things, the best opportunities, the best ministries, the best sermons. I know that, some of us, we lock ourselves in and we develop our sermons in a vacuum with just us and God. And I think there's some value in that. But I think the more that we can allow people to collaborate with us on our sermon development, the more we can just pull ideas from different people. Then we have better sermons and we have better programs and better ministries and better events and all of those things. And so being collaborative, again, not only helps us to do the best we can, but then it also facilitates the growth and the development of those who are involved. And so if you're a lead pastor and you have a staff, particularly a younger staff, if you collaborate with them, not only do you gain the benefit of all of the great ideas that your younger staff will bring to the table, but then all of them will gain all that experience of doing it together. They'll gain confidence because they were able to collaborate with you and able to contribute to you. It just helps everyone to grow together instead of everybody growing on their own individually. And when everybody grows together, then things move faster, things get better faster, things grow faster because we're doing it together. I say all the time that a relationship with Jesus was never meant to be done on our own. It was always meant to be done in a community. And we see that all the way through the entire scripture. Our relationship with Jesus was always meant to be done in community. And I think that ministry and leading a church and being a pastor, that also was meant to be done in a community. And so by collaborating, doing it together, we just do a better job, and we carry the load together. And so it's not all on you. It's not all on me. It's not all on one individual. We're able to do it together. And I think that there's huge value in that. And then the final one is to be trustworthy. Unfortunately, all of us who are pastors and ministry leaders today, we have to work through the distrust of pastors and ministry leaders that have come before us. In our society today, there is a general distrust of pastors and ministry leaders. There was a time when if you were to say, oh, I'm a pastor, there would be great respect or honor or even just affinity that people would have to you because, oh, you're a pastor. But I don't think that's the case today. In fact, there are some scenarios and situations where I personally hesitate to say that I'm a pastor, not because I'm ashamed of it, but because I know that if I say that I'm a pastor, that will put a red mark against me, and I have to then overcome that. Whereas if I say that I'm an author, or if I say I'm a coach or a consultant, well, then I can work in the fact that I'm a pastor and it doesn't hurt me in the conversation or in that relationship. And so I think that all of us have to really work hard to be trustworthy, to do the things that we say that we're going to do. One of my rules of thumb is to under promise and over deliver. We often feel this need to be confident. If somebody says, hey, can you do this for me? Our natural reaction is to say yes. Or our natural reaction is to do it sooner than they need to, or to do it better than what they're asking for. And I think there's value in that. But the problem is that we say that and then we don't follow through. Or we say that and then it's not quite at the same level that maybe we promised or that we perceived that we would do. And that hurts our trust, hurts people's trust in us. They find it hard to rely on us. And as we try to be a facilitator of people's success, we really have to overcome this general distrust that society has of pastors and ministry leaders. We have to continue to show ourselves trustworthy. We have to prove that when we say something that we will do it, that we will over deliver on what we're offering. And I think that when we do that, again, it draws people to us. It helps them believe in what we're doing. It helps them believe in themselves. And as we facilitate that growth or that success pursuit, as we do that, then people are drawn to us. I still today say that a lot of the success that I have today is because of all of those students at OSL, 300 and some odd students that I was able to serve in that 6-year window. I still say that they are the reason that I am successful today, because they taught me a ton, but because I was able to facilitate their success, and even on a very small level for some of them. But I was able to facilitate their success, and they give back to me all the time, over and over again, whether it's just an encouraging word, whether it's partnering with them in different things, whatever the case is, I facilitated their success on some level, and they've appreciated that. And that relationship that I've had with them has grown over the years. And so I just want to encourage all of us, as our world is going through shifts and as it's changing, and as we continuously hope to get back to some semblance of normal, even though we probably never will get back to what normal was before, we also have to understand that leadership is changing and we need to change with it. If we try to do what we've been doing for the last 5, 10, 30 years, we'll find ourselves unable to lead. We'll find ourselves without followers. We will find ourselves ineffective because leadership is shifting as the world is shifting. And we need to make that adjustment with the world, because we want to lead the world, not only lead it into a healthy state, not only into a place where individuals can find success and happiness and hope and all those things, but we want to lead the world into relationship with Jesus. We want to lead the world into a relationship with their creator, their savior, for all eternity. And if we are unable to lead and we are unable to make the shift with the world, then we're going to find ourselves struggling, not just to fill our churches. We'll be struggling just to make an impact on the world and changing people's lives and leading them into a relationship with Jesus. Now, Jesus can do it without us, but he invites us into the process, and we need to develop ourselves, grow ourselves, and equip ourselves to make that possible. So I hope that that's encouraging and helpful and insightful for you today. Be a facilitator. Look around you today. Look around you this week and ask yourself, whose success can I facilitate? Not how can they facilitate my success or how can they facilitate the success of our church, but how can I personally facilitate their success and growth? If you can answer that question and you can invest in that person and really use your influence and use your leadership and use your resources to make that happen, you will begin to understand the shift that's happening in leadership and the great impact that that's going to have on you as well as those around you. All right, have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next episode.